This vlog is for adults living in rural or remote communities who are worried about heart disease and have access to smartphones or smartwatches, but limited access to cardiologists and advanced cardiac testing. We will look at whether simple heart signals recorded from ECG devices can be analyzed by artificial intelligence to flag serious myocardial conditions earlier. In the next few minutes, I will share what current research tells us about how well this works and what still needs to happen before it can be used safely in everyday care. So imagine this. You're in a remote village and suddenly one of your friends feels a ton of chest pain. You rush them over to the community nurse, but there's no clinic, hospital, or a cardiologist with an electrocardiogram machine for hundreds of kilometers. All they have is a simple handheld device, or maybe even a smartwatch. Could artificial intelligence be the bridge between your friend and that hospital? Before you dismiss the whole thing off as science fiction, here's the thing. Maybe fiction isn't so far off. Heart disease kills more people worldwide than any other known disease. In 2021, it was found to be the leading cause of death even ahead of COVID-19. And every day, people die from heart conditions that could have been caught earlier. Traditionally, diagnosis works like this. You go to a hospital, a technician hooks you up to 12 electrodes, and each one of those electrodes records your heart's electrical activity from different angles, like cameras capturing multiple views. Then a cardiologist comes along to interpret the graphs. It's accurate, but slow, expensive, and needs specialized equipment. But what if we don't need all 12? What if just one is enough? Single-lead ECGs aren't new. Smartwatches can already do this. They're portable, affordable, and even teenagers have them. But the problem is that one lead gives way less information. It's like trying to watch TV from a corner instead of straight on. You'll still see it, but maybe not well enough for subtitles. So can AI fill in the missing pieces? Can machine learning detect patterns in a single-lead ECG in a way that humans can't? And most importantly, is this tech ready for the real world? To find out, I conducted a scoping review, essentially mapping out everything scientists have already learned about this topic. So I searched 3 major medical databases: Medline, Embase, and Scopus. For any studies published since 2022, when research in this area really spiked after the rise of ChatGPT. From over 2,400 articles, only 23 met the criteria. AI applied to single-lead ECGs for detecting myocardial disease. For each of these studies, I extracted key information. Essentially, what AI did they use? How did they validate it? And critically, did they test it on new data or the same data that they trained everything on? I used a quality assessment tool called the QuadS2, which is designed to catch common mistakes and biases in medical research, like whether they used diverse patient populations and whether they were transparent about their methods. The whole point was to be systematic and transparent so that you can see exactly what I found and why. But here's the surprising part. In labs, the accuracy was almost perfect, up to 99%, but 72% of the studies tested on the same data that they trained on. And that's like memorizing one photo and calling it recognition. Like, imagine if I trained you to recognize my friend's face using one photo and then tested you with the exact same photo. Of course you get it right. But what if I showed you a different angle, different lighting, with scratches, damages? Suddenly it gets harder. And that's essentially intra-patient cross-validation. Testing on data that you've already seen, which is not a fair representation of real-world diagnostics. When tested on new patients, accuracy dropped to about 89%, which is still good, but for life or death decisions, that 10% gap matters. Only 2 studies really tested on real patients, and the rest, lab simulations with clean, noise-free data. But the good news is that several studies show that these algorithms actually can run on tiny processors, even at about 5 megabytes, which allows them to fit into most modern smart devices. But most studies still tested in perfect conditions. The real world is messy, full of motion, noise, and diverse patients. So we know the tech works, but mostly in perfect conditions, and we still don't know how big of a gap we're really working with. Now let's get back to your friend in that remote village. The technology to help them does exist. The AI works, and we know we can run it on a smartwatch and other small devices, so we have the pieces. But the question isn't, can we do this? It's, are we ready to do this safely and fairly? And the honest answer right now is, not yet, but we're close. To close the gap, we need better testing on new data sets from different hospitals and regions and not just the same public data sets. Next, we'll need prospective trials with real patients and actual clinics and emergency rooms. We need to know that the system works with real motion, breathing, and human variation. Then we'll need diversity. Algorithms must work equally well with all ages, ethnicities, and health conditions, and that's not optional, that's essential. Fourth, standardized reporting for transparency and trust. Researchers need to be able to clearly describe what they did, how they did it, and how they validated it, and what these limitations are. AI for single-lead ECG diagnosis is genuinely promising, and the science is real. But before your friend in that remote village or anyone like them can rely on this, we need to prove that it works fairly and safely for everyone. And when we get that right, finding myocardial disease and diagnosing it won't have to wait for a specialist or a big city hospital. A diagnosis can happen within minutes wherever you are. The future is close, and it's worth doing the hard work to get there.